still circulating.
She's okay? Okay.
People getting infected with coronavirus and getting COVID-19. The virus will mutate because that's what viruses do. Their purpose in life is to find a host, copy themselves over and over and over. That's what makes people sick. So if you come in contact with coronavirus, it gets in your body, starts to replicate itself, and once it gets to a high enough number, it can make you sick. The only way to stop the variants, because Omicron probably won't be the last variant, but the only way to stop the variants is to stop transmission of coronavirus. Should you be worried about the Omicron variant? Yes, we should all be worried about it, because even though it causes milder infection, it's still very transmissible. So compared to Delta and some of the other variants, if you get COVID-19 from the Omicron variant, you can infect many more people potentially than if you had the Delta variant. So it's spread very easily. And this means that people who may have a weaker immune system than you might get COVID-19 from the Omicron variant, and it lands them in the hospital. So we should still be vigilant. Mask wearing, but make sure your mask is tight against your face and cover your nose, because the virus, you can exhale it and it could still escape through your mask. So masking is still very, very useful, especially when you're in a crowded place or in an indoor space and you don't know the people you're around. We also still have to continue washing our hands. We've forgotten about this a little bit, but when you sneeze and cough, some of that can still get on your hands, and sometimes we just wipe our face without thinking about it. Touch our phones, touch doorknobs, all that's still relevant. So hand hygiene is still important. So yes, you should still be worried about it, because until we stop transmission of coronavirus, we will still see high rates of infection, and we will still see mutations. Do the vaccines work against Omicron? Well, it turns out if you've had the J&J shot or the 2-shot vaccines, they don't work as well unless you get a booster. I know there's a lot of skepticism about this. People think we're pushing vaccines and boosters down people's throats. And I know there's a lot of distrust in science right now, and we'll have to talk about that. But to answer the question, this person asked me, does my vaccine work? Does my vaccine work? Yes, it still works some, but your best protection is going to be to get the booster. And right behind that, the question was, well, but I'm young and I take my vitamins and I drink sea moss and I don't think I need a vaccine. Most of the people who are in the ICUs now and dying of COVID-19 are people who haven't gotten vaccinated. So have you ever had a vaccine in childhood? Why are we treating COVID-19, these vaccines, in a different way? Why do we think about them in a different way than other vaccines, when the same way they were developed was the same way we've developed other vaccines? Yes, it did go faster, but we're in a global pandemic. And look at the power of what our government can do to eliminate bureaucracy when there's a public health emergency. Another topic we can keep talking about. But at the end of the day, your best protection for you and your family is to get vaccinated. Why would I bother getting vaccinated if we keep getting these variants, or if I can still get COVID-19? This is probably the most common question I'm getting right now. The purpose of the vaccine is to allow your body to mount a response if you come in contact with the germ. So not just COVID-19 or coronavirus, but any germ. So any vaccine you get, the whole purpose of it is to show your body what that germ looks like so that it can prepare in the event you encounter the real thing to protect you. But that takes some time. So you can still come in contact with coronavirus, and you might get a sniffle, or you might feel a little sick, or you might not have any symptoms, but you can still exhale or sneeze or cough that onto someone else. You won't get sick, or if you do get sick, you'll have a mild infection because your body now can recognize the virus and produce a response to protect you from getting sick. So that's why you should get vaccinated. It's not about not getting COVID. So COVID won't bounce off you like some sort of bulletproof vest just because you've had a vaccine. But once it gets inside, if it gets inside, your body then is prepared to fight it off. Will the test still work if I have Omicron? Yes, because Omicron is a variant or a mutation of the original SARS-CoV-2 strain. So when you get a mutation or a change in the virus of some kind, it doesn't change the entire virus. So it's still a SARS-CoV-2 virus. It's just a cousin or it's similar, but it may behave in a different way. So yes, the test can pick up the coronavirus, that's the Omicron variant, because it's still coronavirus, and the elements you're looking for with the test are still there. But the rapid test is different than what we call the PCR test. The PCR test is the one that takes 2 to 3 days to come back. It has to go out to a lab. They have to do a series of tests on it, and that's why it takes so long to get the result. But the rapid test, those tests can be negative even if you have COVID-19. So that's something to know. So if you're traveling and you're relying on a rapid test, it's really important for you to get tested 2, 3, maybe 4 days in a row looking for the virus. Because if you don't have symptoms or you don't have enough coronavirus in your body, that test could be negative. So it's a good idea. If you have symptoms or if you've had exposure, you can get a rapid test, but it's important to get a PCR. And in the meantime, wear your mask and be smart. Wash your hands. Pay attention to who you're around, especially if you're around older people in your life or people who have chronic health conditions that might be at risk for a coronavirus infection, because you wouldn't want to pass it to them and then have them have a bad outcome. If you have more questions about this, leave them below, and we'll try to get to as many of your questions as we can.
Америкосины, говорит, я понял, что не надо. Всех это самое. Все нормально, все хорошо. Наоборот, ну да. Что полезно, понимаешь? Да. Смерть причиняешь, но не надо. Да. Чувак с печенью, вижу, борется. Чеснок, что ли, показать, что он там показал, треугольник.
Life gives you stress, so make some calm. To help cope with life's everyday stresses. And that's #CalmZone.
Will nothing save us from this unholy curse? There is a curse upon every man across this dark and dangerous land. No one can run, no one can hide from the perils of P.O. 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 Nothing we do will make it go. All the vice does not yet exist, so everyone stops by all. In the bathhouse, one would think a witch could wash away the stink, but when this soup of dirt and grime his head should be a crime. P.O. P.O. And nothing we do will make it go. Markets full of milk and lice, so how we long for Old Spice.
One day in the future, Old Spice will be our savior. Till that day comes, some pits the smell, and our nose is condemned to pungent hell.
P.O. P.O. Nothing we do will make it go. But in 70 years, when the gods of smell see fit, long-lasting Old Spice will save our armpits.
Dead by then.
We don't need to be living in fear. At the same time, we also have to be aware of what we're putting in our bodies, because there are absolutely things that are approved, that are on shelves that you can easily grab, that can really mess up your liver. You just have to arm yourself with the knowledge to know what they are and how much you should really be looking at taking. I want to jump right into this because I feel like the 4 compounds that I'm going to talk about are highly discussed, especially online, and a lot of people say do not take these because of what they do to your liver. I need to clear the air, and although the 4 compounds that I am going to talk about do have an effect on the liver, I also want to play devil's advocate and look at the other side too, because if they're on the market, they're probably not super dangerous. But on the other hand, is anybody really looking out for us? So let's investigate. And after this video, down below, there's a 40% off link for 4-Sigmatic. 4-Sigmatic is an organic fair trade coffee along with lion's mane and chaga. So in days when I feel like I just need a little bit more of like productivity and a little bit more mental boost and a little bit more clarity and focus, I use 4-Sigmatic. Okay, so all the benefits of the organic fair trade coffee, but then you get the adaptogenic effect with the lion's mane and the chaga, which is, again, super good for just getting that focus, getting that productivity, but also chaga is really good when it comes down to immune support. Every single batch is third-party tested. That means the quality of the coffee, but also the mushrooms as well. So everything is super tested, which is what I'm all about, making sure that everything is rooted in data and that things are legit. It also helps that they have 20,000 5-star reviews and have a 100% money-back guarantee. So for that 40% off discount, you use that link down below or go to 4sigmatic.com/Delauer. That's FOURSIGMATIC.com/Delauer. And that's where you can get up to 40% off lion's mane and chaga mushroom coffee down below. The first one is kava. Okay, kava tops the charts as something that is questionable when it comes down to liver toxicity. Now, I might spoil this whole thing when I say I take kava, and I enjoy taking it. I like how it makes me feel, but that doesn't mean that I didn't do my due diligence. So let me kind of break it down because it's a little bit of a gray area. You just have to know. Okay, first of all, what kava does is it blocks sodium ion channels. Okay, so it blocks a little bit of sodium coming into specific cells. Long story short, it helps kind of cut some of the excitability that might be happening in some of your cells in your brain. Makes you feel a little bit calmer, but also enhances what's called gamma aminobutyric acid. So basically it makes you feel a little bit calm. It has a mild sedative effect. Feels a little bit like, you know, having a drink.
Краще труться plan the paper family. Shut up. Ладно, понял. Понял, да, ничего ты не понимаешь вообще. Мне говорится, кава это хорошо, а это вкусно. Ну-ка. Кава камт, да? Кава. 20 минут. Ну, так что согласен только с ним. Okay. Короче, мы не понимаем, что это такое. Ну, наверное. Но это, да наоборот. Да алкаши просто и все, блин.
But without the
Кока, листья
sort of,
коки. Листья коки жуешь, и все
cognitive
нормально.
decline
И
or
чувствуешь
sort of
себя
that
хорошо и бодренько.
portion that we don't really want necessarily. Anyhow, cognitive, having a drink, but without the sort of, I don't know, cognitive decline or sort of that portion that we don't really want necessarily. Anyhow, point is it's functional and it works. But why is there so much talk about it being liver toxic? Well, there were a bunch of case reports back in like the 90s that ended up leading to it getting banned across a lot of Europe. Now, even some parts of North America had banned it. But then you go 12 years later, and some of those bans have been overturned because they said, okay, wait a minute, there's nothing significant showing that there's any independent single cause by kava to really make us take it off the market. So the Chemical Toxicology Journal took a look at 85 independent studies. They took a look at them and they said, single cause. But then you go 12 years later, and some of those bans have been overturned because they said, okay, wait a minute, there's nothing significant showing that there's any independent single cause by kava to really make us take it off the market. So the Chemical Toxicology Journal took a look at 85 independent studies. They took a look at them and they said that there was no indisputable single cause that would make it toxic. So they couldn't really figure out, well, what's the deal? How come we've seen some case reports of people having liver issues with it? Well, long story short, what they kind of concluded was that kava is perfectly fine. It's just if you have a compromised liver, you might run into an issue. Or if you're consuming a lot of other things like medications and alcohol that might have an effect on your liver, then perhaps it has an effect. But even then, there are some studies that show that maybe that's not even the case because kava alongside alcohol doesn't even seem to have a huge effect. So what's the deal? What are these case reports about? Well, one big thing that kind of stands out is some people may be genetically unable to metabolize some of the downstream metabolites of kava. But even that's a little bit of a stretch. I think when you really look at the big picture, back in the 90s, when kava gained a lot of popularity, a lot of brands started producing a lot of it. And they started cutting corners. So what do? They add a lot of the stems and a lot of the leaves, and they extract the compound with alcohol. And when you extract with alcohol, you bring a lot of other compounds that might not be in a traditional pure kava form. So as with anything, I hate to sound generic, but you need to go with higher quality kava. Okay, pure kava extract versus just straight up kava that might be in the relatively cheapest bottle, because then you run the risk of having the stems and the leaves, which are probably the most likely trigger for potential liver issues. But at the end of the day, it's still relatively safe as deemed by the Food and Drug Administration and a lot of other things. So anyhow, just use some caution there. The next one, however, is one that you do need to be careful with. Vitamin A. Vitamin A sounds so docile because it's just a vitamin. But it's very easy to overdo it, first of all, because it's fat soluble, and when you're usually taking a vitamin A supplement, it's usually about 10,000 IUs, okay? And a lot of studies have indicated that as little as 20,000 IUs can be enough to trigger some hepatic toxicity, trigger some issues with your liver. What it does is it causes a mild elevation of your liver enzymes like ALT, AST, but you also end up with what is called portal hypertension. You have the portal vein in your liver, okay, and that portal vein is very important for delivering things to the metabolism ultimately, right? Delivering things to the bloodstream and just important parts of our metabolism. When it is hypertensive, it's usually because it's getting a little bit of fibrosis and you're not having that flexibility to the artery or flexibility to the portal vein as much as you normally would. That's a bad sign because it indicates
selling physical products is not the best way of making money on Amazon in 2021. Now, yes, that model does work, but my twin brother and I, Christian, we've discovered a new
some fibrosis, which again is another potential thing we see with a lot of vitamin A, is progressive fibrosis, almost like a form of cirrhosis where the liver is just getting hardened and is losing its ability to perform as well. Basically what happens is vitamin A in high amounts down-regulates what's called collagenase. Okay, collagenase would stop collagen from forming too much. When collagen forms too much, you end up with this fibrotic tissue. Okay, and that's exactly what we're looking at here. Not to mention, vitamin A can also have an effect on how the mitochondria within the liver process things, process energy. So actually at a cellular, like metabolic energy route, it can affect the liver. So what's the deal here though? Can you overconsume it easily? The short answer is yes, you can. And depending on how much you take, the body can really absorb it. I do not recommend taking a vitamin A supplement unless your doctor has really recommended it. You look at things like Accutane, which is high concentrated vitamin A, high dose, and look at how toxic that stuff is. It's very dangerous. They don't let you consume alcohol, take other medications, go out in the sun, do lots of things, right? So how do you get potential vitamin A? Because it is good for the eyes. It is good for just lots of things like retinol A is going to be good for. But I would recommend going the cod liver oil route. Okay, so cod liver oil is going to be rich in bioavailable vitamin A as well as bioavailable vitamin D, which have some feedback loops together and allow themselves to kind of work in tandem. Plus, it's a lot harder to overdo it, not to mention you're getting a high amount of omega-3s, which kind of have an anti-inflammatory effect, which may have a potential effect at controlling some of those liver issues as well. So go with the cod liver oil instead of direct vitamin A unless you've been specifically told to do so by a medical professional. This next one is intriguing, okay? It's green tea extract. There is some fluff going around the internet saying that green tea extract in high amounts is not good. Well, first of all, anything in extreme amounts probably isn't good because it's going to throw things out of balance. But what happens is with green tea and green tea extract, you are isolating what are called catechins. Catechins are not designed to be independently used, okay? So you look at things like eGCG. I love eGCG. I talk about it. It's called epigallocatechin 3-galate. It is the primary catechin that has powerful, well, indirect antioxidant effects within the body. Okay, its benefit is powerful. It's called epigallocatechin 3-galate. It is the primary catechin that has powerful, well, indirect antioxidant effects within the body. Okay, it's beneficial when we're fasting, it's beneficial when we're dieting. Okay, but here's the problem. When you have it in high amounts, like over like 200 milligrams, you can trigger an effect on the liver that is not very good. Here's how it works. Epigallocatechin 3-galate converts into something called epicatechin galate within the liver. Epicatechin galate is an oxidative stressor. It triggers a little bit of oxidative stress so that the body overcomes it and builds resiliency. Just like fasting triggers oxidative stress and our body overcomes it and develops our own antioxidants. So there's a very fine line, right? A small amount of eGCG, like you would normally get in like a couple servings of green tea, triggers just enough stress to build resiliency and allow your liver and your body to get stronger. It also comes with its own natural supporting antioxidants that might stop that epicatechin galate from going overboard. It's kind of got a governor on it. So green tea in a natural form just makes way more sense because, well, it just does. You're getting it in a whole form. But that doesn't mean that green tea extract is bad. You just have to be careful with what it's combined with because some of these like botanicals and things like that can be hepatotoxic as well. So just pay attention to it and try not to exceed like 200 milligrams of straight up eGCG. Try to keep it like 50-ish. That's a perfect amount and it's still going to get you the powerful effect. A lot of fat burners abuse it. And I have to wrap up with one that's very important, and that is milk thistle. People tend to think that because milk thistle has a liver cleansing effect, that it's going to be liver toxic. Not quite the case. In fact, a lot of both sides are inconclusive. Here's how it works. Milk thistle is really good at sort of reducing liver enzymes in mice, but not heavily proven in humans. And the method of action, or the mechanism of action, is intriguing. Researchers originally thought it had powerful antioxidant capabilities, but ends up not being the case so much. I was a fan of milk thistle for a long time, and then I kind of go on and off taking it. But here's how it actually works. It increases gene expression of genes that increase the right kind of stress within the liver. Ultimately, once again, building resiliency. We don't want a weak liver. We want a strong liver. But with CG, try to keep it like 50-ish. That's a perfect beneficial when we're dieting, at controlling some of those liver issues as well. So go with the cod liver oil instead of direct vitamin A unless you've been specifically told to do catechins. Catechins are epicatechin galate makes way more sense because, well, it just does. You're getting it in a whole form. But that doesn't mean that green tea extract is bad. You just have to be careful with what it's combined with because some of these like botanicals and things like that can be hepatotoxic as well. So just pay attention to it and try not to exceed like 200 milligrams of straight up eGCG. Try to keep it like 50-ish. That's a perfect amount and it's still going to get you the powerful effect. A lot of fat burners abuse it. And I have to wrap up with one that's very important, and that is milk thistle. People tend to think that because milk thistle has a liver cleansing effect, that it's going to be liver toxic. Not quite the case. In fact, a lot of both sides are inconclusive. Here's how it works. Milk thistle is really good at sort of reducing liver enzymes in mice, but not heavily proven in humans. And the method of action, or the mechanism of action, is intriguing. Researchers originally thought it had powerful antioxidant capabilities, but it ends up not being the case so much. I was a fan of milk thistle for a long time, and then I kind of go on and off taking it. But here's how it actually works. It increases gene expression of genes that increase the right kind of stress within the liver. Ultimately, once again, building resiliency. We don't want a weak liver. We want a strong liver, but we don't want to stress it so hard that it dies, right? So it induces gene expression for the proper stressors. Okay, and then it turns down and suppresses gene expression for ongoing inflammation. So in the short term, it helps the liver get stronger, and in the long term, it can potentially modulate inflammation. It also induces AMPK, which allows the liver to kind of go into a recycling mode, and reduces mTOR, which could potentially stop the growth of some lesions and everything like that. Okay, again, phenomenal results in mice studies, but there was a meta-analysis that took a look at 17 different studies and was published in the World Journal of Gastroenterology and found that there's pretty much no effect in humans. Well, how can that be? Because really, it's pretty similar physiology with a mouse liver and a human liver. Bottom line, it comes down to dose. What they tell you to take in the amount of milk thistle is probably not enough. And most of the studies, and even these studies that actually showed this, the researchers flat out said there were way too many variables to really see if this was effective. The researchers deep down, seems like they still felt that milk thistle was pretty effective. So when you look at the mechanism of action and how it works, I would hypothesize that it probably would work in humans. It just needs to be at a higher level, because the reduction of ALT and the reduction of AST in mice is pretty significant. But again, the dose-dependent effect plays a big role. So as always, I know that this was a lot of information, but take with it what you can. Kava in moderation, cod liver oil instead of vitamin A, green tea instead of straight green tea extract, unless it's like realistically, under 100 milligrams, okay? And then milk thistle, take a little bit more than what's probably listed if you want to actually get an effect. So as always, I'll see you tomorrow.
Life gives you stress, so make some calm. To help cope with life's everyday stresses. And that's #CalmGoals.
Wow, look at this. 94% of people believe company culture is important to an organization's success. Frankly, I have no idea what the other 6% are thinking. You know, usually when people look up ways to improve culture, they look for best practices. And best practices are good, but they're even better when you put them with best principles. Since Bamboo HR was founded, we've looked for principles we believe will make our people, and in turn, our culture, better. And we found company culture formulas that work. And we've crammed it all into the definitive guide to culture. For a free copy, click the link and go download it now. You won't regret it. Don't like the price? Well, you can also pay with 3 easy installments of free. Go ahead, go check it out. Or stick around while I read silently about picking the right perks and monitoring culture metrics. Nope, it's not working. Can't read while you're watching me, so just go check it out. It's easy, free. Yeah.
Okay, thank you all for coming. For 60 years now, the authorities have told us we should eat less fat, more carbohydrate, And if we're eating less saturated fat, more unsaturated fat like trans fats. And this has been terrible advice, which has at the very best coincided with this epidemic of diabetes and obesity, and at worst has been causative rather than associative. The extraordinary thing about this huge collective public error is that the person who has done more than anybody else to explode it, Nina, is neither a scientist, nor a doctor, nor a nutritionist. And in fact, perhaps it's necessary that she is in fact an investigative journalist, and perhaps it did take someone from completely outside the field to recognize that the entire field was flawed. We're incredibly lucky that she's come to talk to us today, and I welcome her on your behalf. Nina, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is a lovely introduction, and thank you for having me, Cato. Hello to the audience, and all the people who are watching online, or maybe just one of you. So, great. So I got into this field because I wrote this book called The Big Fat Surprise, and it has the central thesis of the book is what Terence so eloquently described, which is that it seems that the government and our health authorities had really gotten it completely wrong on fat, and especially saturated fat. You know, the kind of fat, the reason we avoid meat and cheese and whole